Okay, hello. So I just want to do a quick review on Chris Hadfield's An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. I read this book just recently, got it in paperback from World of Books, and it cost me about £1.50, I think, so pretty crazily cheap, really good condition. Um, really interesting book. I listen to a lot of personal development books, and I read a lot of personal development books. So I either listen to them on Audible or I read them basically, and I tend to review them. I tend to read sort of at least a book a week, if not a couple of books a week, and I tend to do the review like this when I get an opportunity. Just spare 5-10 minutes, I pull over and set up the camera and just get on with it. I don't really do any sort of second takes or anything, so if I waffle, then apologies for that. I just sort of talk as I see it, really. But yeah, really good book. I think there's quite a few reviews of this online. I think it's considered to be a pretty good book, so you don't necessarily need me to tell you, but I try and do these reviews in a way that I would appreciate a review. So I tend to think that when I'm thinking about reading or listening to a book, I will do a little bit of research. I'll have a look on Audible, see how many reviews, how many stars it gets. I'll do a quick look on Goodreads, something like that. Normally on Goodreads, if it gets any more than sort of 4.1 or something out of 5, then that's pretty good if it's from quite a few thousand reviews. But yeah, that's generally, if it obviously has to interest me, of course. But yeah, I tend to do these reviews. It's just a bit of an extra thing for people just to look up, type it into YouTube, and I'll give you a rough idea of whether it's worth listening to or not. Of course, it's my opinion, but yeah, I'm fairly fussy with books. And this one's really good. If you're at all interested in space exploration, it's really interesting. Even if you're not, I think it's really interesting. I'm not someone who's mad on that sort of stuff, but I do find it fascinating. It's the first book I've read on this subject for quite a long time, but it's just really nice. The way he talks about his journey, the way he started out, how when he was a really young boy he decided he wanted to be an astronaut, and that's an ambition that most people don't even kind of entertain nowadays, even as kids. I mean, kids would be the sort of people who would want to be an astronaut, but it soon gets kind of knocked out of you in school, and the system, leads you to believe very quickly that it's impossible to become an astronaut, really. Even becoming a pilot is considered to be very difficult, and people have to be quite determined and gritty if they want to do something like that. And I think that's exactly what Chris Hadfield was. He decided from a very young age, as he says in the book, that he was going to basically make decisions every day that were going to help him get that little bit closer to becoming an astronaut. And that's basically how the story goes. It's kind of how he worked hard, he was studious, he was gritty, and he became a pilot for the Canadian Air Force. Did really well there, but had lots of tests throughout his life where things could have gone wrong, where he might not have got to the next stage. And I think he's quite modest. He sort of says in the book, he's quite humble. He sort of says that things could have gone wrong, and he might not have become an astronaut. So he took every step to get there, but he was very thankful for every step as well. And he kind of realizes that there's a certain amount of luck involved, or at least being in the right place at the right time. But overall, he was very determined, and he was successful, and he got up into space, and he was up there for quite some time, and he did some cool things. Did his David Bowie song up there, did a few other things. There's loads of videos on YouTube that you can look at, millions of views. And he just comes across as a nice bloke. He puts a bit of his sort of family story in there, the relationship with his wife and his kids and stuff, and how tough it was in some ways. But yeah, it's just a really nice book. I think, like I say, I listen to and read a lot of personal development books, and I think this one is kind of a personal development book in a way, and some of the stuff he says is quite clearly kind of aimed towards sort of personal development and kind of those lessons, but it's just done in a much less boring sort of way. It's actually based on a really interesting story, someone who's really experienced something quite amazing, and he kind of talks about the sort of principles that most good personal development books do talk about, which is having grit, knowing what you want to do, focusing on it, having goals, the big thing is taking those steps every day to get towards it. As he says, he decided from a young age he was going to do everything he possibly could every day to get towards his dream of being an astronaut, and that's what he did. He ate properly, he exercised, he worked hard, he stayed focused, and that's what it takes. Success and personal development is all about sort of compounding over time. So it's the small things that you do. If you take the easy option, then the more often you take the easy option, the chances are that things are going to go wrong. If you're eating bad stuff, you're slowly going to get out of shape. That's going to have a knock-on effect on things. You're not going to be able to think quite as clearly. You're not going to be quite as sharp. Not going to be quite as creative. So he made the right decisions, and he, he got there. Had an amazing experience. The way he describes going up in the rocket, the way he describes being up there and doing a spacewalk, and some of the issues that he came across with getting stuff in his eyes and going blind in space and stuff. It's really, really interesting, really good book. I highly recommend it. And the fact that I mentioned at the beginning how cheap it was, it sounds a bit tight, but yeah, to get it, like I say, for less than a couple of quid in really good condition, delivered to the door from World of Books, is pretty impressive, I think. I know books aren't particularly expensive things anymore, particularly once they're second hand, but it was in really good condition. And that amount of knowledge and that experience, that story, to get that for less than a couple of quid, I think it is pretty good, really. I think we underestimate in our society the importance of reading good books and taking in good information, and the amount of effort, and that's his life that's kind of gone into that, his experiences, and he's a really interesting bloke. Definitely look him up on YouTube. He does a really good speech actually on there. I can't remember exactly what it was now. I listened to it a couple of weeks ago. He's on stage and he's talking about going up into space, and he talks about how visceral it all is, and he talks about just the whole experience. I can't remember what it was called. It's really frustrating, but I will put it in. I'll put it in afterwards. I'll edit it in, put the link in or something. But yeah, he finishes off by doing his David Bowie song at the end on the guitar, which is quite impressive. I just found, when I saw that, I just thought, yeah, he's quite an impressive guy actually. And the book obviously tells his impressive story.